Welcome to our Halloween special at home with Sweet Azalea Halloween. We've got all these wonderful, quick, and easy ghoulish goodies to make for your very own Halloween party. We're starting with a wonderful Bloody Mary punch, and we're going to float these cute little skulls in the punch. Oh, I want to pause and give Kenny, the cameraman, a hand. We have these delicious funeral sandwiches, a modern version of the throwback to the 1980s Pepperidge Farm sandwich with poppy seeds and Swiss cheese and ham. And our poor ladies have lost their fingers. They won't get much typing done without these. These are lady fingers with dyed almond slices for the fingernails. And these are our bedeviled eggs. And they're garnished with a pimento and black olive, and they're stuffed with guacamole. They almost look like black widows. And finally, we have our to die for chocolate cake and the clever cleaver. So join us today as we make some wonderful Halloween treats. No tricks, I promise. Well, y'all, let's jump into all these Halloween goodies we're going to make for this special episode. And the first recipe is a to die for chocolate cake. Now, in the cookbook, the cake is shown as a 3-layer cake that is iced with the cooked icing. But originally, the recipe is done in a Pyrex or a 9x13 type dish. So that's what we're going to do today, and you can cut it in any kind of square you want. You can garnish it with candy corn or little pumpkins. But the first thing we need to do is we're going to take our 1/2 cup of buttermilk and we're going to dissolve our baking soda in that buttermilk and let it do its little magic thing. And the recipes are all on sweetazalea.com, and you can print them. We have a great person that does the website for us, and she's great at getting those PDFs set up for you to print. Now I'm going to turn our little induction plate up. We've already got a stick of butter in here. And to that, we're going to add our water. We're going to add our vegetable oil and our cocoa powder. Let's get all that out of that. And we're going to let that heat up. And we're going to do not really boil it, but you want that cocoa powder to dissolve and you want that butter to melt. So we're getting this where we want it. And this is good to take on a tailgate. It's good to have sitting around the house for after Sundays. You got something you can have with vanilla ice cream, or if you're going to invite some people back over, because it's really very simple to make. And we're going to make the icing. We're going to do this recipe in 2 parts. And we're actually going to do the cake, and then we're going to work on another recipe, come back, and then put that boiled icing over the cake. And y'all, it's delicious. Now, we're going to go ahead, while that's dissolving and mixing up, we're going to put our flour, and we're going to put our sugar and our salt. We're going to kind of just mix those around. Get that ready. And this is coming together pretty good over here. You see that it's not really coming to a hard boil because we don't want to scramble those eggs. Now we're going to add our buttermilk mixture. See how foamy that buttermilk got with that baking soda in there? And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to put our 2 eggs into the flour. And you have to mix this together very quickly so you don't cook these eggs. Now I'm going to pull my spoon out and I'm going to spray my pan real quick. And this is one of my favorite Pyrex because it gives you a good square corner. Some of the Pyrex are more curved and they're great for casseroles, but this will be perfect for these squares. I'm going to pour our vanilla in that hot mixture and we're going to whisk it together really well. And then as soon as we pour this in this, we're going to keep mixing because you, like I said, you don't want scrambled eggs. And this is a very liquid batter. And you think there's no way it's going to turn into a cake. But y'all, it is the moistest, most it's just delicious. It's decadent. And we're going to keep working that flour that's caught in the whisk in the middle. Got to knock that out of there. And you just kind of mix that together. You're going to have a few lumps in it, but that's all right. It's going to have nuts on the top, so you won't know which lump is flour and which lump is a pecan. And you just kind of whisk it a few times and you get most of that out. And we're going to save this pot because we also are going to boil the ingredients for the icing. And it's all the same family, so it's perfectly fine to use that same pot. We're going to pour this batter in our dish. And we'll get a spatula. And we're going to rake all that stuff out of there. And it's not a fudge chocolate. It's a good chocolate. The icing is more fudge-like, which complements this batter. So get all that out of there. And you don't really have to spread it. Now this is going into a 350-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes until it sets. And when it comes out, while it's still warm, we're going to cover it with that cooked chocolate nut frosting. So we'll be right back and work on our next recipe. Oh, hey, y'all. Didn't know y'all were back. I was working on a new recipe and it kind of got away from me. And I got to tell y'all, I just went on a little getaway for a few days and stayed at the neatest little out-of-the-way motel. And I brought back a souvenir, but y'all can't let Norman know because he gets so upset when things are not in their proper place. But this is my great little kitchen towel, and it's from one of my favorite places to stay. Now we're going to work on our lady fingers. And you see we've got some little coffins, and we have our little bowl of skulls. And those are just to kind of tease you and make you wonder, what are we going to do with those? And you'll find out as the episode progresses with our Halloween Ghoulish Goodies. Now, the lady fingers, it's an old recipe. They've been around for, people call them nutty fingers. They call them Russian tea cakes. But it's just a good recipe, and it's been around for a very long time. And we're going to work on those. Now, here is our softened. It's 7/8 of a stick of butter. So it's like 1 tablespoon off the stick of butter. And then we're going to add our powdered sugar. And we'll use more when it comes time to roll them and dust them. And we got a fun treat we're going to use to do these that I'll show you in just a second. We got our finely chopped nuts. You want these a little bit smaller than normal because you really want to get it, and that one's got a little bit big. He didn't get chopped enough. But you want a smaller chopped nut because you're going to shape these and they'll look prettier if you don't have big pieces of pecan or pecan, depending on what part of the South you reside. Put those in there, and we have 2 teaspoons of really good vanilla. You know, I'm a fan of vanilla, and oh, it smells so good. Because that's the only flavor you're going to have in this cookie. And then we're going to take a break because I forgot my paddle. And we're going to kind of cream that mixture. I'm going to lock it. Start it on the little low speed, and we're just going to let that kind of go. And we've got an extra special treat for y'all too. At the end of this episode, we're going to meet a new friend of mine at historic Summerville Cemetery. And she's going to give us a little information about the history of the cemetery and what the Board of Trustees do for the perpetual care of that cemetery. So you don't want to leave when we stop the cooking. We got a few minutes of a cemetery tour. Now we're going to go ahead and slowly add our flour. Now, most of the time when I make these for a wedding or a special party or an order, I'll make them a little bit smaller, so they're about 1 or 2 bites. But because we're doing these for Halloween and they're going to be favors at a party, we're going to actually make them actually like true fingers, a little bit longer. So this mixture is going to come together in just a minute. It's not a very loose dough. It's a very dry dough. We've got everything's rattling. Turn this off, pull this up, and you see it's kind of a sandy consistency. And when you go to shape them, it's going to pack together. So we're going to start getting ready to shape those fingers in just 1 second. Get my Bates Motel towel. And I've already greased our pan, but before we do the fingers, we're going to work on the fingernails. So we're going to give them a manicure for Halloween. We're going to give them a red manicure. And we've got some red gel food coloring. You can use liquid. But you're going to apply this into a little dish. Put it up here where you can see what I'm doing. And you stir it around a little bit, get it coated, and you may see that you need to add a little bit more. And you just kind of stir this gel. The liquid really does a whole lot better. But I kind of like this speckled, blood-splattered look. And we're just going to let those sit. I'm going to spread them out on a paper towel and let them start to dry. But those are going to be our bloody fingernails that'll go on. You can see, I hate to get my fingers pink, but you can see the shape of that. When they dry out a little bit, you'll see it's a perfect fingernail shape. Now, you're going to press some of your dough. And again, you got to kind of work with it. It's a dry, sandy dough. And I'm just going to shape it in the little finger. Can y'all see that little finger? Oh, I broke off one of the digits. And if you kind of work with it, that butter will get even a little more soft, and you can kind of press it and roll it. And you'll see now we have the finger shape. And you can kind of leave this part kind of a little more narrow because you're going to put our fingernail on there in just a little bit. Well, I'm going to keep shaping some of these fingers, and we'll get those in the oven, and then I'm going to work on the chocolate icing for that cake we put in the oven a little bit ago, and we'll have 2 of our Halloween goodies knocked out. So y'all stay with me. Well, y'all, those lady fingers are finishing their baking, and I wanted to show you that I put the almonds on this paper towel, and that will help them air dry a little more quickly. And you could actually do this stage the day before, and then you'll have them ready to apply to the lady fingers, and we'll do that shortly. And you know, I was thinking the recipes that we're really doing today are not typically designed for Halloween, but I have brought them together because they can be used towards a Halloween party. And of course, it wouldn't be a Halloween party without Bloody Marys. And this, people buy the mix, but y'all, it's really doesn't take a minute to mix up your own, but you do what you want to. This one is really good, and you can, season it up, make it a little hotter. Some people like to put a little Old Bay or some Tony Chachere's in there, but we're using Tito's vodka, which is my favorite vodka, And we're going to put a cup of vodka, and you can add more vodka to it, obviously. And we'll put a little bit of ice. We're going to serve it in this great brandy snifter that was gifted to me many years ago by a very dear friend. And it's a great punch bowl. We do whiskey sour punches in it. We've done actually a trifle in it and served it at a luncheon. So it's a great serving piece, and I cherish this and try to take very, very good care of it. Now we're going to add this entire bottle of V8, or you could use tomato, you could use clamato. There's a variation on the intensity of a Bloody Mary, the base flavor of a Bloody Mary, and not being a tomato person, I can eat it cooked or stewed or in a sauce, but drinking tomato juice or eating a slice of tomato is just not on my list of favorite things. So we're going to add this to our vodka. And in culinary school, when I was going through with splash tomato juice everywhere, V8 juice, we had a banquet dining room. And that meant that we were in a 3-week course where we served the banquets. Well, we also would end up spending 2 or 3 weeks in the banquet kitchen. And they had sombrero that we did in punch bowls. They had Bloody Marys. They had screwdrivers and whiskey sours. And people could order a punch bowl of that beverage for their party. And my niece makes a great whiskey sour punch, and we'll make that on an episode. And but this is the Bloody Marys. And so we're going to add the prepared horseradish. Now, prepared horseradish means it's prepared to be made into something else. It's not the creamy horseradish, because if you put creamy horseradish in this, nobody's going to drink it. It's going to look like melted tomato acid, which is awful. So you're going to add the prepared horseradish. And the prepared is what you want to drain if you're making cocktail sauce, or if you're going to use it to make a horseradish sauce for a tenderloin. And then we've got Worcestershire. It's smelling like a Bloody Mary. And then we have lime juice. And of course, you know, you can get your Bloody Mary drinkers to taste it. And if it needs a little more of pep or a little more bite. And then we're going to shake up the Tabasco. This is our Tabasco. And you just want to put some hot sauce in there. And I know most people like their Bloody Marys with a kick. So that ought to really kick them. And we're going to mix this again just a little bit. And you can make this a day or two ahead and keep it in a pitcher in the refrigerator. And again, you've got something made for your party that's done a couple of days ahead of time. And then we're going to bring our brandy snifter over. And we will put ice in this right before we get ready to do our presentation. And that's what the little skulls are for. They're going to float in the Bloody Mary punch. So we're going to gently pour this, and you want to pour in the center, and it's going to splash up a little bit, but the depth of the punch will cover up those splashes. And after you get a little bit poured in there, you see the splashing has minimized. And there's our punch. And then once you add the ice to it, it'll raise the level. And if you wanted to, you could add some more vodka to it if you like a heavier drink. But we're going to set this aside, and we're going to get our chocolate cake out of the oven, and we're going to do that boiled fudge icing with nuts and put that over it. And then we'll roll our lady fingers in their powdered sugar and get those decorated. And we've got 2 more Ghoulish Goodies still to make. Y'all, the cake has baked up beautifully, and I've already melted our butter. And to the butter, and we're using that same saucepan that we used to heat the mixture for the cake batter. And because it's all one part of the same, I call it the same family, it's okay to use that same sauce pot. So we're going to add vanilla, that good smelling vanilla, and we're going to add our cocoa powder, and we're going to put our heavy cream, or half and half, whichever you have at home. And we're going to whisk that until that cocoa has completely dissolved. And I hope y'all can see that. I moved this comes together very, very quickly. And when it sets up, you're going to have this wonderful fudge-like icing on top of this cake. All right, we're going to pull it off our heat, and we're going to add our one box. Turn it this way. It's so different when you're cooking and people have to be able to see what you're doing. And we're going to mix in that powdered sugar. And while we're doing that, we're going to add our finely chopped nuts. And we did them small, and I'm going to switch to a spatula at this point because I don't want to lose any of that good fudge. And mix that in. And if it gets too stiff on you, you can always add a little bit more half and half. And mix that in. And it's going to take it a minute because, like I said, this comes together very, very quickly. And that's looking a whole lot better. That looks great. See that consistency? That's what you want. And then we're going to spoon this over the cake. I can turn it this way and pour it. I'm not a left-handed person, y'all. This is making a horrible mess on a horrible Halloween. I've got it going everywhere. Woo, y'all. This is like being at home, and I'm trying to get it done so I can take a nap. Look at that. This is just awful. But y'all just laugh about it and go on. Just laugh about it and go on, because at the end result, it's going to be so good. It doesn't matter how you got there, you're going to get there in the end. Every road eventually leads to a little bit of delicious. It certainly does. My neighbor Judy's going to love a little surprise piece of this because she is a chocolate fiend. All right. And that may have to go for me to taste later, so I'm going to put it over here on this side so I won't forget to taste it later. Now that's got our cake, and we're going to set that aside and let that frosting set up. And I'm going to wipe down, and then we're going to decorate our ladyfingers, and then we're going to make some bedeviled eggs. They're devilishly delicious. Oh, that's a tongue twister. Y'all, this is one of the fun parts of doing a special party around a theme, because it lets you think outside the box and come up with a way to serve a recipe or present that recipe in a different way. And this is where the little coffins come in. Now, one of my helpers here at the shop put these together. You can buy the kit for the top and the bottom on Amazon, and they have to be folded, and we actually even taped the inside of the lid. And we have to have a home for our ladyfingers. So this will actually be a party favor. And before we start on the actual finger, I kept thinking of what do I want to put in the coffin to house the ladyfingers that would be food safe. Well, in the Victorian era and England and other places around the world, even mummies, well, they use shrouds. Now, of course, the mummies were a little more carried away with because they wrapped them and wrapped them and wrapped them. But this is just regular cheesecloth that you can buy in the grocery store. And it's very similar to our haunted cloth we have in the back. And I'm just going to open up, get our little bloody nails out of the way. I'm just going to kind of lay my coffin down to get kind of an idea. Let's get this overhead in here to kind of see how much gauze. So I'm going to cut the cheesecloth a little bit on either side. And then I'm going to line the cheesecloth into the little coffin. And then we're going to set the coffin aside. And we're going to start our fingers. And you could wonder why I have time on my hands. Well, I don't have time on my hands because I don't have enough time to do what I need to do. Time is going to be a very special garnish in this recipe. So we're going to start by taking our warm lady fingers. And you want them warm. I found if you do them when they're really hot out of the oven, it gets kind of, the powdered sugar will get gummy and you have to do a second coat. So if you let them cool a little bit, but they're still warm inside, you can do a better coating. These are coating extremely well. And again, the recipes are on our website at sweetazalea.com. Now, I'm going to wipe off my powdered sugar. And this is just some regular cake icing that I make in the shop when I'm icing cakes or making flowers for pedophores and things. So you can buy these disposable plastic pastry bags at Michael's, Hobby Lobby. I ordered a big box of them from one of my restaurant suppliers because I go through so many of them. And you can get them smaller, but I find if you get a bigger bag, you can obviously use a small amount of icing, but then if you're doing a bigger project and you need more icing in the bag, well, then you have room. So don't waste your time buying several different sizes. Buy a pretty good size bag because you can always cut the top of this off if it's too much bag for you to work with. So I put just a little bit of the icing. You can buy the vanilla that's already made, the Pillsbury, Duncan Hines ready-made frosting. They even have tubes of the little white frosting that are ready-made in the grocery store on the baking aisle. And that will work for this purpose because you don't need a lot. So we're going to take our finger and I cut a tiny little bit off the tip. So you'll see, I'll do it on my finger. I'm just going to get a very small line of icing. Wipe it over here. And we're going to take this and we're going to go to the narrow end of, move that so you can see better. We're going to go to the narrow end of our little lady finger and we're going to pipe a little bit of that icing. And these have dried pretty well. And you're going to stick that lady fingernail. Well, all right, let's do another one because what's happening is the powdered sugar is keeping it from sticking. So now let's do our fingernail. And you're going to set that aside. I'm going to put it on the table so you can get the full effect. And don't be discouraged. You saw I had an issue with getting that one to stick. It's okay. You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to find out works well within your skill set and what you're comfortable doing. So don't get upset because it didn't work out the first time. So going forward, I'm going to go ahead and rub a little bit of the powdered sugar off and pipe the icing down in that. And we'll put another fingernail. Now these really need to set for a good little while for that icing to set up. But I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more off that end. And you see I'm not putting a lot. Now these two stuck together. And again, I kind of like this blood splatter look because she couldn't afford a real manicure. So she got a budget job. And you could even do these as toes if you wanted to and make them fatter and wider and don't blanch the almond. But y'all, are those not the cutest little lady fingers? And you can even call them vampire fingers because that's what they look like with those blood red nails. So I've got 5, and I think I'm going to fix 6 to go in the coffin. And this is the fun part. This is where you can sit down on a kitchen stool and just relax after you've done all this. Now, these are still a little tacky, so that's why they're sticking to my fingers. But you just use the other finger. So we're going to go ahead now and wipe my hands off on my apron. And we're going to take our coffin, and we're going to place the lady fingers in the coffin like this. Want somebody to be surprised when they open this. And, you know, actually, I think 5 are going to fit in here better than 6. And then we just take our cheesecloth and gently cover up those lady fingers. Now, even in Jesus' time, they would take herbs and different spices to anoint the bodies. And the Victorians would also lay bouquets of flowers. And as much as it was for sentiment, it was also to kind of mask some of the odors of the deceased as they were waiting. So we're going to lay a few sprigs of thyme on our resting lady fingers. Doesn't that look pretty, y'all? And then we're going to put the top back on our coffin. Tuck each end in carefully. Tuck each end in carefully. Well, happy Halloween is all I can say. I hope my coffin doesn't give them this much trouble one day. And then there's our little coffin favor with lady fingers. So that's something really fun, really clever. And you don't have to do them as favors. You can put them on a neat tray, and they just, I mean, look at them. They just look like little pale lady fingers, dead lady fingers. When we come back, we're going to do those bedeviled eggs that are made with guacamole, and we're going to give them a special garnish to help haunt your table. We'll be right back. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. All right, y'all, we're going to do our bedeviled eggs. And a couple of things I want to tell you about making your event very fun and very different is thinking outside the box. It's not complicated. It's not hard to do. Look at something that you have or you see and think, now, how could I make that work for this Halloween party? Now, one thing I ordered, and I ordered these with a specific purpose in mind, we're actually going to put a 3 dozen count cheese straws in a seal bag, tied up with cellophane, and then put some Halloween ribbon for the shop for people to sell for a little Halloween treat to take to the vet, to the bank, to the doctor's office, just for a little Halloween treat. But imagine you're having some of your friends over. Order Chinese. Put a small plastic punch cup in the bottom of each of these, and they can serve their lo mein, which is the noodles with the sauce and the vegetables, sometimes with pork or chicken, and it would almost look like they were eating worms out of the tombstone. You can also do popcorn in them as favors for a party. You could even put another small punch cup and do a salad in this, and they could eat out of the box. So these are really, I ordered these off Amazon, and they're 24 to a set. They come flat, and you just have to put a little tab together. Again, my staff put these together for me, and they're just very fun and very different, and it's just a neat way to jazz up what you're serving. So keep that in mind when you're thinking of something fun you could do. And you could put the lady fingers in that. Put some crinkle stuff in the bottom, shreds, stand the lady fingers up, tie it up with some cellophane, and put a bow on it, and then give that as a gift. Now for our bedeviled eggs, the first thing we're going to do, I want to tell you about these bean sprouts, which I can eat them in food, but they're not my go-to vegetable. And Lord have mercy, I don't know how people with real bad arthritis get into anything because they've got it so sealed. I mean, it's a bean sprout. Why do you have to have 3 levels of getting through? But if you look at a bean sprout, and I'm just going to take some out, do they not look wormy or like roots? Or, you know, use these, and I'm not going to use them for the, you could use them under the deviled eggs. I'm going to use the sprouts because they look more like moss. But these, look at that, just gives you that wormy look and the way they hang over. So look at food, look at items in the store and think, oh, I can put that on the table and call it such and such. Like you could get those little tiny little red peppers that people are so fond of now. They're very tiny, and you could call those dragon drops, and put a little extra cayenne in them and put them in a bowl and let people have those on a charcuterie. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to line our tray. Lord, here we go again with this special sealed. I wish we had a studio audience. I'd get somebody to come open this stuff. There it goes. And we're going to bring this over a little bit, and we're going to sprinkle our sprouts. And this is not an original idea. I've seen this done for different applications but I've always liked it, and it presents well, and it gives the eggs a nice little nest. So you don't need a lot of them. And you know, we're going to put just a few bean sprouts on there too, just to give it a little bit more of a kind of a wormy, and let some of them hang over the edge of your tray, and you can stick them under the edge of that. They're like little baby snakes. So we're going to let that sit there. Let's put a few more bean sprout worms on the back side. Look at those worms. And that's about all sprouts are good for, in my opinion. You can put them in a pita pocket, but I'd just soon go outside and mow the grass. Now, we're going to take our eggs, which were already boiled and peeled. And, you know, an older egg will peel much more easily than a fresh egg will. And if you get your water, put your eggs in your pot of cold water, bring it up to a boil. Let them boil hard for 5 minutes. Turn off the heat and put a lid on it and let them sit 10 minutes. You'll get a perfectly cooked egg, and the yolk should be very yellow and not get that grayish film around the edge of the yolk. I'm going to grab a little bowl to mix the yolks and the guacamole, which is this ingredient we're using in our bedeviled eggs and the turkeys. It's a very easy recipe to throw together. I'm going to step right here to the side and grab a little bowl, and we're going to cut our eggs in half, and you're going to pop out the yolk, and you're not using as many yolks as you would if you were doing a proper deviled egg. So some of the yolks we're going to actually discard unless you want to make a little dish of egg yolk salad, which I don't think it would be very good without the whites in it. We're going to do enough to fill up this lovely little tray that will look so nice nestled in our graveyard back here. Our Bloody Mary punch is already sitting back there, and our ladyfingers are already in place. Okay. Put one more yolk, and then we're going to start discarding some of them. Well, I said I was going to discard them, didn't I? And I want to tell you a secret. If a white breaks like that, just be more gentle in taking out the rest of the white, because the filling will actually hold that together. So don't just think, oh, that one broke, and throw it in the trash. Give it another chance at life, and let the filling hold it together. All right, this is going to be our last little egg. I'm discarding the yolks over here because I don't have an immediate need for them. And then we're going to mash the yolks. Now, if I was doing a bigger batch, I would do them in the food processor and let it really emulsify those yolks so it would be a smoother paste. But since we're using kind of a chunky guacamole, and this is Holy Guacamole, which is one of the favorite brands I like. It can be a little bit more of a coarse mixture. All right, so we've got, move the garnishes aside, and then we're going to take the guacamole. Now, this is going to be a challenge. I've been going to the gym, but it doesn't prepare you for these kind of lids. All right, we're going to put just a little bit of guacamole. And this one is not a real dry guacamole, so you want to mix in some. And the actual recipe is on our website. And I'm just going to put a squirt of Durkee's because I like that sharp flavor. And kind of mix that. So we get that nice greenish looking egg filling. And we're going to use our guacamole spoon, and we're going to spoon the filling into the egg half. And you don't have to use any of the egg at all. You can fill it with complete guacamole, which is a very good high-fat, healthy fat alternative to regular deviled eggs. So we're going to fill these up. And y'all, this guacamole does smell very, very good. And these are different fun eggs to serve anytime. They're really good poolside with a Tex-Mex meal because everybody loves a good deviled egg. Put that on our worms. I remember when I was growing up, Daddy would stay home and give out candy to trick-or-treaters, and Mama would take me out trick-or-treating, and Daddy would always wait until we ate supper before I could start out, and our doorbell would be ringing with other kids coming to trick-or-treat, and I'm sitting there trying to eat spaghetti or whatever he had fixed for that night, for Halloween night supper. All right, I'm going to show you how to fix this cracked egg with my last of my little filling. You put your filling in, and look, see it's holding that together. Then you put that on your tray. Now we're going to work on the garnish for these eggs. And this is, you can use a green pimento stuffed olive if you do not like the flavor or the texture of a black olive. I prefer a black olive on a pizza or on a hot dish. I do not like them cold in a salad. But what we're going to do, I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. I have two sizes of pimento. I have the more of a slice, and then I have the petite diced. So what we're going to start with, there we go. I'm going to take one of our black olives, and these are the medium black olive. I'm going to take out a piece of our, get this nice firm one, and I'm going to cut off a piece of that, and I'm going to feed it into the opening of this olive. That's why I got two different kinds. I'm trying to decide which method is going to work. Now, I've put as much in there as it'll go. Now, this is what's going to transform these olives into be deviled eggs. We're going to slice, be sure we got this in the, what's blocking us up there? Let's see. All right, we're going to slice it, and you don't want a thin slice. Look at that, y'all. Magic. Then you put that in the center of that egg, and it even gives it a Black Widow effect. Again, it's thinking outside the box. And this took all of just a minute, and I'm going to trim a little bit off the other end of this olive. Did those not look creepy and Halloweeny? So let's do one more. So we've learned that, and if you need to, just to take a little slim edge off of this, it'll go in the olive much more easily, and then you just cut off, and then have a very good sharp knife, and then you get your red eye. And that's about the thickness you want it. You want it about just that thick. And then we'll do, let's see, we need to do one more. We're not going to have quite enough. I have to make one more of our little eyes. So let's do, and I'm just going to pack this leftover piece. I keep looking at the overhead camera for help, and I don't know what I'm thinking it's going to do. But we get enough out of that one little piece to do us the last eye. So we didn't need to stuff the whole. And then to garnish this, we're going to take a few more clusters of these black olives and just sit them around on the platter. Whoop, run away. And then we can even take some of these strips of red pepper and just kind of line them around that tray. And it's almost, it came out more of a Black Widow spider effect than an evil eye. But either way, I like the bedeviled eggs, and I hope you'll enjoy this recipe. But they are really very Halloween looking, and it's not the deviled egg your grandmama would make, I can promise. Next up, the last recipe for our Halloween soiree. Do you have any guesses? It wouldn't be Halloween without a funeral. Y'all, don't come to me about The Walking Dead until you've owned your own gourmet to go catering business. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm walking dead. But we're here to make our funeral sandwiches. Now, I'm going to go back in time to the 80s when Pepperidge Farm made those little trays of those small silver dollar little yeast roll. And everybody was making the poppy seed and butter and Dijon mustard and putting that in the Swiss cheese and the ham and wrapping them in foil, and you couldn't go somewhere without seeing them. Well, Pepperidge Farm doesn't make those little rolls anymore, so therefore people have had to adapt. Now, this recipe, I like these. I'll eat them when I need to binge on something because they're soft and they're good and they're a little sweet, but they're, and I hate to say this, but they're kind of a cop-out when you need a roll for a covered dish or something. Go get a nice little pan of rolls from your local person or something and take something that's got a little more oomph to it. These are great for barbecue sliders and for these type sandwiches, but you know, don't take this to somebody's house when there's been a death. You know, take them a good roll. But this recipe will make about 24. We're going to put together 12, and we're going to put them in this pan because you can take them on a potluck this way. You can take them to a friend. You can cook them in your own oven, then transfer them to a serving platter, which we're going to do with this coffin-shaped tray. And another thing about using this, if you go tailgating, this will travel. You can sit it in your cooler with warm stuff, and they'll stay warm for having it at the ball game. People call them a lot of different things, but the difference is the topping is poured on top of the sandwich. And they're a little bit messier to eat, but my soul, they are so good to eat. And you can make them with most any combination of meat. I'm doing ham, and I'm using provolone. Now, you can do Swiss, you can do roast beef, you can do turkey, but this is just the basic. And I've already melted a stick of butter in the microwave. And we're going to get our spoon over here, and we're going to add our Worcestershire sauce, the brown sugar. This is just regular yellow mustard. Now, you can use a sharper mustard like Dijon or whatever you might want. And we'll get that mustard in there. And then the poppy seeds. So it's kind of the same recipe, but it's a little deconstructed. It's a little backwards. But if you Google funeral sandwiches online, you'll get the recipe. That's just what they were, I guess, because people take them when there's been a death. So we're going to stir our little sauce together. And you think, Lord, that's not much sauce. But you don't want them soggy. You want them to be coated. And it's better to make these a day ahead and then bake them. And I like to bake mine covered part of the time and then uncovered the last 5 or 10 minutes because you really don't want that top bun to get too dried out. So I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to get our serrated knife. You want a good serrated knife to cut your roll because you want them neat. And we'll move this out of the way, and we'll come up here and we'll have our cheese. Now we're going to start by slicing the roll. And the way I do it is I put all the bottom parts of the roll in the pan. Let's put the pan up here for right now. And just keep doing that. These are going to be so good later on, y'all. These are great for young people too, because most everybody loves ham and cheese. I love this knife. It's a commercial bread knife, and it'll go through bagels, rolls, bone. You have to be careful with these. They are really razor sharp. And 12 fit nicely in this pan. These rolls do smell good, y'all. And a little bit about my ham. Now, if you've not baked a ham and you don't have ham on hand, that's fine. Everybody goes and gets a deli ham. I have found through experience and taste that Boar's Head sweet slice ham has the best flavor and the most texture of a baked sliced ham. So remember, the Boar's Head sweet slice is a great ham. It's great on chef salads. It's great on sandwiches. It's great to use in cordon bleu because it's just and I had them cut it, I call it between very thin and thin, so you can still work with it. It's not shaved, but it's just I hadn't tasted anything today. The texture's good. It doesn't have that old slick boiled ham. Now, we're going to put the ham, and you can be as generous as you want to with your ham. I just kind of tear it and layer it. We'll do this kind of quickly so we can get to the good sauce. And this ham, as thin as it is, pull that little fat off there, it's going to be very easy for people to bite into and eat. And that's important. You don't want to do a thick piece of ham and they bite into it and every bit of the ham comes out. And that's embarrassing for people to be at a party and they got that stuff coming out and hanging down and getting on the clothes. You have to think about your guests and what's going to be easy. Well, this little country ham, deli ham had a little fat on her, but that fat's the flavor. Just kind of keep folding that ham. Did y'all know that Halloween is the second largest retail holiday only after Christmas? Halloween has made a resurgence in the last few years. And I think a lot of that is in part to adults getting involved and wanting to celebrate and have a good time. So now I'm going to cut my cheese in fourths. And I like Swiss or provolone, but if you cut it in fourths, look how perfectly that slice fits on those little sandwiches. Now, why am I not cutting 2 slices at a time? Because if I did, the knife is going to seal those insides. You'll eventually get to separate them, but that bringing that pressure down is going to bring those edges together, and you won't get a straight, smooth cut. It'll actually bring those slices together permanently in holy matrimony. All right. We need 4 more slices. And these are a very economical party food or tailgate food because you can get, again, 3 slices of cheese gave us all those sandwiches. Now we're going to move all this over. And we're going to put our tops on. Kind of press a little bit. And then, of course, after these, they'll get baked about 10 to 15 minutes. I don't cook them much longer than 15 in a 350-degree oven. And then when they come out, we'll plate them up on this coffin tray. So you take some of your sauce, and again, this is enough for 24, and you just kind of spoon it over and spread it and let it run down. And you can freeze these. A friend of mine does freeze these for her son. She makes them ahead when he's coming from California, and because she knows Jimmy loves his funeral sandwiches, so she makes them and will have them frozen ready for him to take out and bake a pan when he's here visiting. So we spoon this delicious sauce, and you can smell that Worcestershire. And the poppy seeds are just because they were in the original recipe, and I think people felt like they needed them because they don't add a thing except a little bit of speckles on the top. You know, a poppy seed doesn't really taste like anything. Look at those, y'all. They look so good, and they smell so good. And, you know, we're kind of reviving a few old recipes for this Halloween party, and we're showing you just by their names how easily they work with a Halloween theme. Funeral sandwiches, ladyfingers, bedeviled eggs, Bloody Mary punch, and we also did our first recipe that everybody really loves, to die for chocolate cake. And there's one thing that I forgot to share with our to die for chocolate cake, and that's this little clever cleaver. This is actually a little cheese cleaver that we bought to sell in the shop. And when we were doing a photo shoot one day, I had forgotten to take the cake. So as I ran back in to get the cake out of the cooler, I saw our basket of these cleavers, and I said, that's it. So when you do your cake and put it out, you'll stand your cleaver up in an angle. It's kind of as a tribute to Lizzie Borden. Now, these will go into a 350-degree oven for, again, about 15 minutes, covered for 10 and uncovered for 5. And you need to make an extra pan so you'll have one to hold back for yourself because they really are good. So I'm going to go run these in the oven, and I want you to remember about our little visit to Summerville Cemetery in just a little bit. You're going to meet Lucy Schuler, and you don't want to miss some great facts about this historic cemetery in the heart of Augusta's Summerville district. Y'all, we had a great time in the kitchen today doing all these spooky good treats. And what better fun than to come and finish our special Halloween episode in historic Summerville Cemetery. I've got my new friend, Lucy Schuler, who has family here and has a lot of great historical information that she's going to give us some of the highlights. So Lucy, how old is the cemetery actually?
Actually, you're going back to the early 1700s and moving forward up to today. And the people buried here were residents of Summerville. That was the rule um, if you wanted to be buried in this cemetery.
And that's still the case today with a few people that they're descendants of the original.
Yes, and there is no more space available here in Summerville. So there are no plots to be bought, and so if you've got space on a family plot, then you're in good shape. But otherwise, it has been fully occupied for a very long time.
Now we're actually standing near your father right here. And then your mother is right there. So, and your family goes way back. Aren't they some of the original people that donated the land
Yes,
for the cemetery?
Thomas Cumming, the first mayor of Augusta, um, owned all of this property, and he gave the land so that there would be a cemetery in Summerville. He established Summerville and its parameters, and then many of his descendants are also in here, but streets are named for them in Summerville. There's great history on all of Summerville along with this cemetery.
Now, I have a rather morbid question.
Okay.
If I've noticed there's several above ground brick tombs, if you will. And I've always thought that meant that there was a coffin. If you move that slab, there's going to be a coffin laying there, or now probably just a skeleton. But you have told me different.
Correct. All burials are below ground. I think that was just a trend, if you will, for monuments.
To be a little more stylish and to show notoriety.
Could be, or maybe a less expensive approach to having a monument. When you look at some of the carvings on these really large monuments.
Well, they didn't have the expense of the vault back like we have now to put the
Correct.
coffin in.
Correct.
Now tell me the little legend about the tunnel of Summerville.
Well, there is a legend, and I think it is truly just a legend, that underneath one of these raised monuments is a tunnel, an escape tunnel used by slaves. That's never been verified.
Well, we're going to find it, Lucy. We're going to come out here and we're going, one by one, we're going to find that.
Slide open each one.
And we'll look down in there. Well, Lucy, it's been a long morning. My neck fat's sweating a little bit. But tell us, we're finally at the Cummings, and those are your great ancestors, are they not?
Yes, they are. Thomas was the first mayor of Augusta. However, they refer to it as the first intendant, and he established Summerville and donated the cemetery property for purposes of having a cemetery in the area. And his wife is buried here, and children, and on down to my grandparents. So all the Cummings are in this direction.
Well, tell me about the Thanksgiving tradition that you shared earlier.
Well, I grew up about a block from here on Cumming Road. My mother was the Cumming, and every Thanksgiving after the meal and feeling the need to walk the meal off, we would come up to Summerville Cemetery with all our cousins and whoever made it to the Thanksgiving table.
And have a little cocktail with you.
We did. We had a tradition of drinking Manhattans at Thanksgiving. And so, yes, those were in tow as we walked up here and came to visit the family.
Family.
Yes.
Well, have you had anybody, people in the community, anybody on your trustees, have they said anything at all about any kind of a hauntings, or is there supposed to be a spirit in the cemetery or anything?
They have not, but I would like to think we've got some friendly spirits moving about in here because.
Hey, y'all hear that? I'm kind of hearing voices in the mic right here.
I'm not hearing anything. I hear the wind, a little breeze in the leaves.
Okay.
So you really haven't had any kind of.
No.
And y'all don't have a lot of break-ins, or people are very respectful of the cemetery usually?
People are respectful of the cemetery, yes.
Are you sure
well,
you're not hearing this?
Because
it sounds like they're saying that we're kind of disturbing them. You're not hearing that?
No, no.
Are you getting feedback from one of us?
Okay.
Well, this being here reminds me of the famous Highgate Cemetery. And I do have friends that do not like it when I lapse into my British, but I think it's a nod to our fellow friends across the pond, as they say. And I think we ought to retire. You want to go for a spot of tea somewhere?
I would.
And reminisce over the graves and what we've done here.
Absolutely.
I think it's time for us to leave because I'm kind of.
What's he talking? I don't. What? I don't understand, but. Go on, Lucy. This isn't the time. This isn't the time to walk.
Come on.
I don't know what we're damn running from. Lord, I guess I can say that on YouTube.
Well, Lord. I think you can say anything on YouTube.
I'm sure that's probably the most lame thing we've ever said.